The morning sun filtered softly through Amara's modest apartment window, painting the room in gentle gold. A white nurse's uniform hung neatly on the chair beside her study table, a symbol of how far she had come. Just a year ago, she had slept on the streets with nothing but hunger and hope. Now, she was a nursing student at Lagos State University, sponsored by the Okafor Foundation. Amara sipped her tea slowly, her gaze falling on a framed photo on her table. Mama Grace, Chike, Zara, and herself smiling after the awards night. It still felt unreal. Sometimes she woke up expecting to find herself back in the cold alleys of Ojulegba. But then her alarm clock, her textbooks, and the warmth of her new life reminded her that her struggle had birthed something beautiful. Her mornings were simple. She volunteered at a small community clinic before heading to school. Patients loved her, not for her fame but for her gentle hands and listening heart. People often whispered, "That's the maid who saved the billionaire's mother," but Amara never let it get to her head. Still, fame came with shadows. On her way to class one day, she overheard two classmates giggling behind her. "She thinks she's a celebrity now. I beg she's just lucky. Maybe she used charm on that family." Amara smiled faintly and walked on. The old her would have cried, but she had learned that peace meant not letting lies define you. That evening, as she packed her bag to visit Mama Grace, the building's security guard handed her a sealed envelope. "Madam, this just came for you," he said. The letter was unmarked. Amara tore it open, and froze. Inside was a single sheet of paper with neat handwriting that made her heart stop. "Enjoy your fake peace while it lasts. You took my family, my life, and my place. I'm coming for everything you stole. Ifeoma." The paper slipped from Amara's trembling hand. Her breathing quickened as a cold chill ran through her spine. "Ifeoma?" she whispered. The past she thought she had buried was coming back, and this time, it wasn't forgiveness that Ifeoma wanted. The dim motel room smelled of old perfume and regret. Ifeoma Okafor sat in front of a cracked mirror, her manicured fingers trembling as she traced the faint scars around her wrists, reminders of handcuffs that once held her. Gone were the diamond bracelets, the silk gowns, the magazine smiles. What stared back at her now was a woman consumed by bitterness. Months of silence had hardened her heart. After being released on bail for good behavior, and lack of sufficient evidence linking her to the poisoning, she had expected her husband to come back for her. But he never did. The world she built, her status, her wealth, her name, had been replaced by Amara's. She clenched her jaw as she scrolled through her phone, landing on a viral video, the homeless maid who saved a billionaire's family, her inspiring story. The clip showed Amara, radiant in her nurse's uniform, smiling at children in a clinic. Beside her, Chike and Mama Grace looked proud, like she had always belonged there. Ifeoma's fingers tightened around the phone until it cracked. "That street rat took everything from me," she hissed. "But I'll make them all regret it." A sharp knock interrupted her rage. She opened the door to find a man in a brown leather jacket. Kola Adeniyi, a tabloid journalist known for his scandal stories. "I heard you have something interesting," he said with a smirk, lighting a cigarette. "And I like interesting." Ifeoma leaned against the door frame, her lips curving into a cold smile. "You want a headline? I'll give you one that'll break the internet." By the next morning, gossip blogs exploded with sensational headlines. Ex-maid framed her boss's wife to gain fame, sources claim. Billionaire's ex-wife speaks, "I was the victim all along." At first, Amara ignored the noise. But as days passed, the whispers grew louder. Students at her college looked at her differently. Nurses at the clinic began avoiding her. Even the patients she cared for murmured when she walked by. Somewhere in the city, Ifeoma watched it all unfold from her motel window, her lips twisting in satisfaction. "Let her feel what it's like," she muttered, eyes glinting with vengeance. "Let her know that even from the ashes, I can still burn her world down." By noon the campus felt different, colder, thinner, airless, as if gossip had siphoned the warmth out of ordinary rooms. Amara walked into her anatomy lecture with a stack of notes pressed to her chest, trying to keep her shoulders steady. The whispers began before she sat, a hush, then the soft rustle of phones, an exchanged look. Someone had already started a thread. She slid into a back row and tried to focus on the professor's voice, but words blurred. A classmate's phone buzzed, a headline scrolled across the screen, "Did the maid fake the poisoning to steal a billionaire's life?" Someone snickered. Another student muttered, loud enough for a few nearby to hear, "She used pity to climb the ladder." Typical. Amara's hands tightened around her pen until it bit into her palm. After class, she hurried through the courtyard as notifications erupted in her pocket like small explosions. Her inbox flooded. Accusations, cruel memes, taunting comments under old photos. Someone had stitched a video together, a clip taken out of context, edited to suggest she'd rehearsed her rescue. It spread like oil on water. She didn't make it to the clinic. A salty burn filled her eyes. She ducked behind a column and sobbed, feeling exposed and small in a world that had been so quick to celebrate her and yet quicker to condemn. This wasn't just gossip now. This was a targeted unraveling. By evening, Mama Grace called, and as always, her voice was a steady anchor. "My daughter," she soothed, "truth is a stubborn thing. Let it do its work." Chike came to the apartment later, his presence a quiet wall. He sat on the couch and took her hands. "They will try to break you with noise," he said. "We will answer with facts. I will not let their lies stand." His certainty steadied her like a braid holds loose hair. But the threat came after they had tried to build some calm. An anonymous message arrived on Amara's phone. No number, no sender name, only the cold black text on a white background. "If you don't leave the Okafor family, the next scandal won't spare your life." The message sat on the screen like a stone. Amara read it 3 times as if the words might dissolve, but they didn't. A new kind of fear, personal, intimate, violent, threaded through her chest. Chike's jaw tightened. Mama Grace's prayer that night was longer, her voice shaking as she asked for protection. Outside, the city continued its indifferent pulse. But inside the small apartment, a question hung heavy between them all. How far would Ifeoma go to reclaim what she believed was hers? The next morning began deceptively normal, sunlight filtering through lace curtains, the smell of pap and akara in the kitchen, and the sound of Mama Grace's radio humming old gospel tunes. But beneath the routine, fear crawled silently through every corner of the apartment. Amara tried to convince herself the message had been a sick prank. Still, she couldn't shake the image of those words glowing in the dark. Every sound outside, a car door slamming, footsteps in the hallway, made her flinch. At the clinic, she forced a smile for patience, her stethoscope trembling slightly in her hand. But when she stepped outside for air, she noticed a black SUV parked across the street. It had been there since morning. Its windows were tinted, impossible to see inside. A man in a baseball cap leaned against it, pretending to scroll through his phone. Every instinct in Amara screamed danger. That evening, Chike arrived home earlier than usual, his expression grim. He tossed a folded newspaper on the table. The headline read, "Billionaire's maid-turned-fiancé under investigation. Source reveals hidden truths." Her eyes widened. "Fiancé? What are they saying?" "Fabrications," Chike muttered. "Ifeoma paid someone to feed false statements to the press. I've filed a restraining order, but she's moving faster than we expected." Mama Grace frowned. "That woman has darkness in her heart. She won't stop until she destroys this home." As they spoke, the doorbell rang. Amara's heart jumped. Chike opened it to find a small brown envelope on the doorstep. No sender, no stamp. Inside was a photograph. Amara at the clinic, caught mid-smile, and beneath it, a note written in red ink. "You took my life. Now I'll take yours." The room fell silent. Amara's hands trembled as she held the photo. Chike took it gently, his jaw tightening with quiet fury. "This ends tonight," he said, voice low. "I'll find her." But Mama Grace shook her head. "No, my son. That's what she wants, for you to act in anger. Let's do this the right way." Amara looked between them, her voice barely a whisper. "She's watching me, isn't she?" Chike met her eyes, unblinking. "Yes. But she doesn't know one thing." "What's that?" "That this time she's not the only one watching." That night, the Okafor mansion glowed with quiet tension. Every window was locked, every light dimmed. Chike sat in his private study, the glow from his laptop illuminating his sharp, determined features. On the screen were digital traces, emails, account transactions, and anonymous IP addresses. He had hired a private cyber investigator, and what they'd found connected everything back to Ifeoma. Amara, sitting across from him, watched in silence, her palms clasped tightly. "So she's behind the messages, the articles, all of it?" "Yes," Chike said, eyes never leaving the screen. "She's been paying journalists and online trolls from an untraceable fund. But now we have the link, an offshore account registered in her old name before our marriage." Mama Grace entered with a tray of tea, her eyes filled with worry. "My son, you can't fight evil with rage. Be wise." Chike sighed, rubbing his temples. "Mama, this isn't just about anger. She's threatening Amara's life." The older woman placed her hand on his shoulder. Then protect her, but with wisdom. Let her destroy herself with her own lies. That sentence hung heavy in the air, and slowly a plan began to form. The next morning, Amara went to work as usual, or at least appeared to. Chike's security team followed discreetly, while a trusted friend at the clinic planted hidden cameras and microphones. Their goal was simple: to bait Ifeoma into revealing her next move. Midday, Amara received another message. Meet me at the old mansion tomorrow if you want this to end. Come alone. Chike's first instinct was to refuse, but Mama Grace's calm voice cut through the storm. Let her think she's in control, she said. But you'll be watching, from the shadows. That evening, as Amara prepared for the confrontation, she stared at her reflection in the mirror, the same mirror where she once saw a scared maid. But now she saw strength. She whispered to herself, "You can't break me anymore." Behind her, Chike placed a small tracker in her pocket and held her hands. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember, I'm right behind you. And for the first time in weeks, Amara smiled faintly. Let's finish this. The following night, rain drizzled softly over the abandoned Okafor mansion, the same home where Amara had once mopped floors and folded linens. Now it stood in eerie silence, its grand chandeliers dark, its marble floors gleaming faintly in the storm's reflection. Amara arrived alone, her heart thudding beneath her coat. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of dread. She clutched the small tracker hidden in her pocket, Chike's voice occasionally whispering through the earpiece. I'm here, Amara. We see everything. Just stay calm. Lightning flashed, revealing the decayed edges of the once glorious house. She stopped at the dining room door, the very place she had once caught Ifeoma pouring poison into Mama Grace's tea. The memory sent a chill down her spine. Suddenly, a voice cut through the darkness. You came. Ifeoma stepped out from the shadows, wrapped in a long black coat, her beauty now sharp and venomous. Her once elegant face was thinner, eyes wild, makeup smudged from tears or rage or both. I warned you to stay away from my family, she hissed, pacing slowly around the table. But you couldn't resist, could you? The mansion, the cars, the husband. You stole everything from me. Amara's voice trembled, but she stood her ground. I didn't steal anything. I only saved your mother-in-law's life. Ifeoma's laugh echoed through the hall, cold, bitter. You think I care about that old woman? I built this life. And you, she pointed at Amara, voice shaking, you turned them against me with your innocent act. Her hand slipped into her coat pocket, revealing a small bottle, a familiar clear vial. Poison. Do you know what irony is, Amara? Ifeoma whispered, stepping closer. It's poetic justice. The maid who saved a life, dying the same way she saved it. Before she could move further, floodlights suddenly blazed through the windows. Voices boomed from outside. Police. Drop the bottle. Ifeoma froze, panic flashing across her face. Chike emerged from the shadows behind her, 2 officers at his side. It's over, Ifeoma, he said coldly. For a moment her eyes darted between Amara and Chike, disbelief turning to despair. The vial slipped from her trembling hand, shattering against the marble. And as the officers handcuffed her, Ifeoma looked at Amara one last time and whispered, You'll never truly have his world. But Amara's steady gaze said otherwise. The mansion felt eerily calm after the storm. The police had taken Ifeoma away, her cries fading into the distance as the patrol car disappeared down the wet driveway. The air smelled of rain and regret. Inside, Chike stood motionless near the shattered vial, his reflection broken across the glossy marble floor. For years, he had tried to fix a marriage that was already poisoned long before Amara entered their lives. Now the truth lay bare, as cold and silent as the remnants of glass. Amara sat on the edge of the dining table, trembling from adrenaline and exhaustion. Mama Grace, who had insisted on being brought there once she heard the news, took her hand gently. You were brave, my daughter, the old woman whispered. You walked into the lion's den and came out whole. But Amara shook her head. I didn't want this. I never wanted to destroy anyone. Chike finally turned, his eyes tired yet filled with quiet resolve. You didn't destroy her, Amara. She destroyed herself. Everything she did tonight was her own choice. He reached into his coat pocket and handed the police a small flash drive, the audio recording from Amara's hidden mic. The evidence was damning. Ifeoma's own voice, confessing to the poisoning attempt and her vendetta against Amara. As the officers took the file, one of them said softly, With this, she won't get bail this time. Silence lingered after they left. Amara leaned against the wall, feeling a strange emptiness where fear used to be. Mama Grace stood and hugged her tightly. "The truth always finds light, even in the darkest places," she said. Later that night, when the house had quieted, Chike found Amara sitting in the garden behind the mansion. Rainwater dripped from the leaves, and the faint smell of jasmine hung in the air. He sat beside her without speaking for a while. Then, in a low, genuine voice, he said, "You could have run away, Amara. But you didn't. You faced everything, for my mother, for me, even for her." Amara looked up at him, eyes shimmering in the faint garden lights. "Because family isn't blood, Chike. It's loyalty." For the first time in years, Chike smiled, not the confident CEO smile but something real, quiet, grateful. He reached for her hand and she didn't pull away. Above them, the sky began to clear, as though even heaven had decided they'd earned a moment of peace. 2 months later, the world had changed, and so had Amara. The mansion that once echoed with chaos and pain was now filled with laughter, life, and a gentle kind of peace. Flowers bloomed again in the garden Mama Grace loved so much, and the heavy curtains that once shielded secrets were replaced by sunlight streaming through open windows. Amara, no longer dressed in worn Maid uniforms, now wore a white medical coat with her name embroidered neatly on the chest. Dr. Amara E's Community Health Initiative. Her journey through nursing school had accelerated after Chike funded a scholarship program in her name, not out of pity, but as recognition for her strength, intelligence, and heart. That morning, as she prepared to leave for work, Mama Grace sat in the living room, humming softly while folding clothes. "You remind me of your late mother," she said with a fond smile. "Quiet strength, same kind eyes." Amara knelt beside her. "You gave me the courage she couldn't. I'll never forget that." Just then, Chike entered, dressed simply in a shirt and slacks, a far cry from his usual boardroom suits. His business empire was thriving again, but more importantly, he was at peace. "I spoke with the lawyers," he said, handing Amara a file. "The foundation is officially registered, the Amara Grace Foundation. We'll build clinics across rural communities, starting with the one you grew up in." Her eyes filled with tears as she flipped through the papers. "You named it after me?" He smiled. "After you and my mother. You both saved this family." Outside, cameras flashed as journalists waited for a press conference, not for scandal this time but for something good. Amara hesitated at the door, remembering how those same lenses once painted her as a villain. But now she stood taller. "Are you ready?" Chike asked. Amara nodded. For the first time, yes. As they stepped outside together, applause erupted. Reporters shouted her name, children waved handmade banners, and the world finally saw her not as a maid or a scandal, but as a hero reborn. From a homeless girl who once scrubbed floors, Amara had become a symbol of resilience. And deep inside she knew, she hadn't just saved a billionaire's family. She had rebuilt her own destiny. Far from the glittering city, in a gray concrete correctional facility on the outskirts of Lagos, Ifeoma Okafor sat in a dim cell, her once flawless nails now chipped, her hair rough, her beauty faded beneath the weight of sleepless nights. The clang of metal gates echoed every morning, reminding her that the empire she once ruled was now a distant memory. She had tried everything, appeals, lies, tears, but the evidence Chike and Amara gathered sealed her fate. The audio recording of her confession had gone viral. Her name, once a symbol of elegance, now whispered in disgust. Yet Ifeoma wasn't broken, not completely. At least not yet. On a dull afternoon, she received a visitor. The guard opened the door and a woman in a dark suit stepped in, a lawyer holding a file. "Ifeoma Okafor," the woman began calmly, "I've been sent by a friend. There's a proposal for you." Ifeoma raised an eyebrow, eyes hollow but sharp. "A friend? I have none left." The woman slid the file across the table. Inside was a single sheet, a legal document. At the top in neat print it read, "Transfer of ownership, Okafor Holdings Charity Branch." Her breath caught. It was Amara's foundation. The lawyer continued, "Miss E's and Mr. Okafor have chosen to name a rehabilitation program after you, the Ifeoma Project, dedicated to helping former inmates rebuild their lives. It's fully funded under their foundation. They wanted you to know, they forgive you." For a moment the room was silent. Ifeoma's lips trembled. "Forgive me?" she whispered, disbelief dripping from her voice. "After everything I did?" The lawyer simply nodded. Tears spilled down Ifeoma's cheeks, not from guilt but from something heavier, shame. The realization that the very woman she had tried to destroy was extending mercy. When the lawyer left, Ifeoma stared at the paper, tracing her name. For the first time she didn't feel hate, only a hollow ache of what she had become. As the evening sun filtered through the iron bars, she whispered softly, "Amara, maybe you really were the better woman." Outside, the city skyline glowed in the distance. The same city where redemption had begun for one woman, and repentance had finally started for another. 2 years later, the world looked very different for everyone who had once been tangled in tragedy. The Amara Grace Foundation had grown into one of the most respected health and rehabilitation initiatives in the country, with clinics built in 10 rural communities. Billboards carried Amara's photo, not for fame but as a symbol of hope. She still wore her simple gold cross necklace, a quiet reminder of where she came from. The Okafor mansion, once a place of secrets, now hosted monthly community dinners. Orphans, former inmates, and struggling families gathered there to eat, laugh, and rebuild. Mama Grace, now older and slower, sat in her favorite chair on the balcony, watching the world she'd prayed for finally blossom before her eyes. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Amara walked into the garden where it had all ended, the place where she once faced death and fear. Chike followed quietly, carrying 2 envelopes. He handed one to her. "This came from the correctional center," he said softly. Amara opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, the pen strokes shaky but heartfelt. Read. "Amara, I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that your kindness saved me more than prison ever could. I now help women in the rehab center find work, and every time one of them smiles I think of you. You didn't just take my place, you showed me what it meant to have a soul again. Thank you for letting me live long enough to learn what real love is. Ifeoma Okafor." A soft breeze swept through the garden as Amara read the last line, tears glistening in her eyes. "She finally found peace," Mama Grace said from the doorway. "Even broken people can be healed if given mercy." Chike stepped closer, his voice warm and sure. "You healed all of us, Amara, even me." Amara turned, smiling faintly. "No, Chike. We healed each other." As the night sky deepened and lanterns lit up around the garden, Amara looked upward, at the same stars she once prayed beneath when she had nothing. Now she had everything that mattered: love, family, forgiveness, and purpose. And though her story began in the dust of the streets, it ended in the light of grace, proof that even a homeless maid can change the world when her heart stays pure. Subscribe, like, comment, and share for more interesting stories.